coworkers noticed the change. He wasn't smiling. He stayed late to avoid going home, though he didn't really have one anymore. At lunch, he sat alone, scrolling through photos of his old life. Pictures of them at church on their anniversary, the dinner he'd made her last Valentine's Day. All fake now. He had been nothing more than a stepping stone to her. The house he built, the money he earned, the peace he provided, it all meant nothing. Meanwhile, Jada posted selfies captioned "starting fresh," and "peace is expensive." Friends praised her glow up without knowing the cost. Maurice said nothing. He didn't post, didn't explain. He was too tired to defend himself. And yet, through the exhaustion, a small fire started to burn inside him. Not of revenge, but of something even more dangerous: quiet determination. At Denise's suggestion, Maurice started spending time at Mr. Langston's old auto garage. It was where he used to volunteer years ago, before life got too busy. The space smelled like rubber and oil and held memories that felt like home. Mr. Langston, now pushing 70, still ran the shop but moved slower than he used to. "You got hands like your father," he said, watching Maurice change a tire with ease. "But you let people wear you down." Maurice chuckled, but the words stung in truth. Mr. Langston offered him weekend work, nothing fancy, just a way to get out of his head. Maurice accepted. Grease under his nails was better than silence in his chest. He started showing up more often. Fixing engines was simpler than fixing a broken heart. And as he tightened bolts and balanced wheels, something inside him slowly began to reassemble. Not fully, but just enough to keep going. While Maurice worked quietly, Jada's world began to shift. At first, things looked good. Her business stayed steady, and she continued posting luxury brunches and motivational quotes. But the support Maurice once provided, managing her bookings, handling her invoices, driving her to clients, was gone. She hadn't realized how much of her brand ran on his invisible labor. Now, her schedule fell apart. Clients grew frustrated. One accused her of stealing a deposit. She had no system, no help, and no fallback. Meanwhile, Derek, the man she had grown so close to, started pulling away. He liked the fun version of her, not the one drowning in chaos. She tried calling Maurice once, just to clarify a few things, but he didn't answer. The silence hit harder than expected. She had kicked him out like trash. But now, the trash was gone, and so was everything he quietly held together. Maurice, on the other hand, kept moving. One day, while helping Mr. Langston, he overheard the old man sighing at bills. "I can't keep this up forever," he said. Maurice hesitated, then asked, "You ever think about selling?" Mr. Langston looked surprised. "To who?" Maurice shrugged. "Maybe me." They talked numbers. It wasn't cheap, but it wasn't out of reach, especially now that he wasn't pouring money into someone else's dreams. That night, Maurice crunched the numbers. Between his warehouse job and savings, he could make it work with time. For the first time in years, he felt hope. Hope that didn't rely on someone else's love or approval. He started working extra hours, cutting back, saving more. He didn't tell anyone. He didn't need validation. This wasn't about showing Jada what she lost. It was about showing himself what he still had to give, to something, to someone, to himself. 3 months passed. Maurice kept his head down, worked his jobs, and slowly bought into the garage. Mr. Langston drafted a contract giving Maurice full ownership after one final lump sum payment. Maurice signed with trembling hands. He was building something brick by brick, bolt by bolt. Meanwhile, Jada was unraveling. Her social media posts stopped. Clients vanished. She sold her high-end wigs and designer shoes on Facebook Marketplace. Maurice didn't check on her. He didn't need to. He had learned that caring for someone who never cared back was just another form of self-abandonment. The pain hadn't disappeared. It still lived in his chest, but it no longer defined him. Every oil change, every tire fix, every early morning at the garage added another piece to the new version of himself. And every day he didn't respond to her silence or shade, he reclaimed another part of his dignity. Then the letter arrived. A thick envelope bearing both their names, Maurice and Jada Benson. It was from the mortgage lender. Jada hadn't paid the property taxes since he left. The house, the one he helped purchase and keep, was in jeopardy. Maurice was still listed on the deed. He spoke to a lawyer who laid it out plainly. You still own half, maybe more. She hasn't refinanced. You can take full ownership if you settle the debt. Maurice had enough saved barely. He paused. This house had once been a symbol of love. Now it was just bricks and pain. But he remembered the porch he built with his father's hands. The hallway where his mother's photo still hung. He paid it, quietly. No phone call, no argument. He filed the deed transfer, had the locks changed, and let the city records update. She'd know when she saw the notice taped to the front door. Jada came home to find a no trespassing sign on the porch, and her key no longer worked. Furious, she banged on the door until a neighbor stepped out. He moved back in, the woman said. Been cleaning the place up nice too. Jada's heart sank. She tried calling. Maurice didn't answer. She tried texting. No response. What she didn't know was that Maurice was in the garage, under a car, gospel humming on the radio. He read her messages, then deleted them. She didn't say sorry. She didn't admit the damage. She just wanted back what she never appreciated. He didn't hate her. He didn't wish her harm. But he wouldn't open that door again, not metaphorically, not physically, because finally he knew his worth, and it had never depended on her recognition. She could keep her pity. He had peace. Life stabilized. The garage grew busier by the week. Local teens came by asking for work, and Maurice mentored them with the same patience Mr. Langston once showed him. He repainted the house, removed old furniture, rebuilt the porch swing. He never threw away the pain, but he used it, transformed it. One afternoon, while grocery shopping, he saw Jada at the self-checkout. Her clothes weren't designer. Her makeup was gone. She looked up, eyes hollow. Maurice, she said, almost whispering. He nodded, placed his last bag in the cart, and said, take care of yourself. Then he walked away. No grudge, no gloating, just peace. She stood there watching him leave, finally realizing she hadn't just lost a husband. She'd lost a man who had been her greatest blessing. Maurice pulled into his driveway later that evening, the sun casting warm light across the porch he once rebuilt with trembling hands. Gracie, his old rescue dog, barked from the window. He stepped inside his quiet. Maurice Benson was the kind of man people overlooked. He was quiet, dependable, and never one to seek attention. At 38, he worked long shifts as a warehouse supervisor in Richmond, Virginia, and spent his free time fixing up his late mother's house, reading old detective novels, and helping his neighbors whenever he could. He met Jada at a church outreach event. She had just been laid off and was struggling to find her footing. Maurice gave her rides to interviews, bought her groceries, and prayed with her. She called him her peace. When they started dating, everyone said he was too good for her, but Maurice believed love was about loyalty, not looks or money. He proposed within a year. She said yes without hesitation. He thought he'd finally found someone who saw him, not knowing she only saw him as a placeholder until something better came along. From the beginning, Jada liked the idea of Maurice more than she liked Maurice himself. She praised his stability to friends, but rolled her eyes at his dreams. When he talked about saving for a small mechanic shop he always wanted, she called it a waste of time. She insisted they focus on her goals first, getting her new business off the ground. Maurice agreed. He used his savings to help her start a mobile beauty service. He built the website, paid for her marketing, and even drove her to clients. Slowly, her business grew, but her affection didn't. She stopped holding his hand. She ignored his calls when she was out. When Maurice brought it up, she accused him of being insecure. A real man doesn't need constant attention, she said. He began to shrink quietly, choosing silence over conflict, still believing her love would catch up to his one day. Jada's confidence grew with her business, and so did her cruelty. She criticized everything Maurice did, his job, his clothes, even the way he spoke. At family gatherings, she talked over him or brushed off his opinions. Her friends started treating him like a background extra. Still, Maurice stayed. He cooked dinner, paid bills, and made sure she had everything she needed. He figured marriage had seasons, and maybe this was just a cold one. But deep inside, he was hurting. The warmth she once gave him had turned into sharp coldness. He tried writing her letters, planning quiet dates, and even suggesting therapy. She laughed at the idea. "Why would I go to therapy when you're the problem?" she snapped. Maurice felt smaller with each day, but he never raised his voice. He never stopped trying. He just kept loving her from a distance, hoping it would be enough. The emotional abuse got worse. Jada began staying out late, claiming she had networking dinners. Maurice trusted her at first, but something felt off. She started wearing heels he'd never seen, posting pictures of wine glasses and steak dinners with cropped-out company. She barely spoke to him when she got home, and when he asked who she was meeting, she rolled her eyes. "You don't need to know every detail of my life," she said. One night, she came home at 2 a.m., reeking of someone else's cologne. When Maurice confronted her gently, she snapped, "Don't start acting like a jealous man now. You knew what I was when you married me." He stood in silence, too shocked to reply. She walked past him like he was furniture. That night, he sat on the porch until sunrise, wondering how he became a stranger in his own home. Morris's family started noticing the changes. His sister, Denise, asked if he was okay. He lied. "We're just going through something," he said. But he couldn't hide the weight in his eyes. Jada refused to visit his side of the family, calling them too country and embarrassing. So Maurice started going alone. He never talked bad about her, not even when people pried. Loyalty, to him, wasn't seasonal. It was permanent, even when undeserved. Still, his heart ached. The woman he'd once prayed for now treated him like an inconvenience. Yet he carried her groceries, folded her laundry, and warmed her car on cold mornings. Every small kindness was met with sarcasm or silence. He didn't know how much longer he could take it, but he also didn't know how to let go. Jada had taken everything from him except his will to endure. That, for now, was all he had left. The day things shattered completely started like any other Sunday. Maurice invited his family over for dinner, a small get-together with ribs, potato salad, and music playing low. He cleaned the whole house, cooked the food, and set the table with care. Jada showed up 2 hours late, dressed like she was going to a club. She barely greeted anyone, then sat at the table scrolling through her phone. When Denise asked how business was going, Jada smirked. "Thriving, considering I have to carry dead weight at home." The room fell silent. Maurice looked up, confused. She locked eyes with him and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "I only married you because I felt sorry for you." Laughter didn't follow, just silence. Jada stood up and added, "Matter of fact, why don't you go pack your things tonight? I'm done pretending." She walked out the door, leaving Maurice humiliated, heartbroken, and utterly destroyed. Maurice sat frozen at the table while his family stared in disbelief. No one moved. No one spoke. His mother quietly reached for his hand, but he pulled away and stood up slowly. "I'm sorry y'all had to see that," he whispered, his voice barely holding. He cleared the plates, washed the dishes, and packed leftovers like nothing had happened. But inside, something deep in him cracked wide open. That night, he didn't sleep in their bedroom. He lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling, replaying her words over and over. "I only married you because I felt sorry for you." The woman he built his life around never respected him. He saw it now. The subtle smirks, the dismissive words, the public belittling. Everything made sense. The pain was unbearable, but something else stirred beneath it, clarity. Maurice finally understood. This wasn't love. It never had been, and it was time to accept that. The next morning, Maurice packed a small duffel bag. He didn't yell, didn't argue, just folded 2 shirts, a pair of jeans, and his work boots. Jada didn't flinch. She sipped coffee at the kitchen counter, scrolling her phone. "Make sure you don't take anything that's mine," she said flatly, not even looking up. He nodded, zipped his bag, and walked out. No hug, no apology. He drove straight to his sister Denise's house, where the door opened before he could knock. "You good?" she asked. He nodded, eyes red but dry. Denise didn't press him. She made space, gave him the guest room and silence. That night, Maurice sat at the edge of the bed, still trying to make sense of it all. His wife had kicked him out of the home he worked for, in front of the people who'd watched him give everything for her. And she felt no shame. Not an ounce. Maurice tried to distract himself by going back to work, but he moved like a ghost. Co-workers noticed the change. He wasn't smiling. He stayed late to avoid going home, though he didn't really have one anymore. At lunch, he sat alone, scrolling through photos of his old life. Pictures of them at church on their anniversary, the dinner he'd made her last Valentine's Day. All fake now. He had been nothing more than a stepping stone to her. The house he built, the money he earned, the peace he provided, it all meant nothing. Meanwhile, Jada posted selfies captioned "Starting fresh," and "Peace is expensive." Friends praised her glow up without knowing the cost. Maurice said nothing. He didn't post, didn't explain. He was too tired to defend himself. And yet, through the exhaustion, a small fire started to burn inside him. Not of revenge, but of something even more dangerous: quiet determination. At Denise's suggestion, Maurice started spending time at Mr. Langston's old auto garage. It was where he used to